A man stepped into a cab, but not before burying his foot deep into a puddle. The rain had been falling for a few hours now. Thick waves of water pounded the windshield. The wipers, although on their highest setting, were losing the fight. The cab driver flinched as the passenger door slammed shut. "Fifth and Diamond Street!" The man in the back seat bellowed. The cab driver glanced momentarily at the man in the rear view and clicked the car into drive. The man anxiously watched the ticker as his fare rose. He didn't have much money in his pocket, and each mile meant more work once he got to his destination. "Relax," he thought to himself. "You know you've been in scrapes like these before, and you always come out smelling like a rose." Somewhat calmed, he reached past his revolver for his handkerchief and wiped off the last remaining external evidence of his anxiety. He pushed his worry aside and settled back into the seat, determined to stay ahead of his fears. The cab sped through the city night as the rain continued to fall steadily. "Can't you go any faster?" He sniped at the cabbie, knowing it might mean sliding the man at the wheel an extra bill. He reached past his revolver again, this time for his wallet, which he opened to survey its contents. The name on the new license startled him. His new license. This was him, for now. A sudden jerk wrenched his attention from his wallet, which slipped from his fingertips and slid underneath the front passenger seat. "Oh shit!" the cab driver yelped. A black SUV smashed into the rear of the taxi and neglected to slow. The truck's headlights flooded the dingy interior of the cab. This was definitely going to be an expensive cab ride. The hot smell of the taxi's brakes permeated the interior of the vehicle as the driver fought for control, his exclamations a mixture of prayers and curses. With eyes on the imposing grille of the SUV behind them, his passenger was strangely calm. "What's your name?" he demanded. "What?" the driver yelped out. Chuck, but I don't think this is the time for—" "Chuck," his passenger interrupted. "It's the perfect time. Take your foot off the fucking brakes and listen to me." Surprisingly, the driver released his hold on the brake and the cab slid haphazardly along the slick highway in front of the SUV. "Hit the gas and cut down this next street," the man yelled. "Now, Chuck!" The cab driver hit the gas and spun the steering wheel in a hard left turn. His face blanched with sickening fear that struck his stomach. He fought hard to maintain control of the car when suddenly the wheel was yanked away and the man who had been his passenger moved into the front seat. "Now if you want to live, sit in that passenger seat, don't argue, and don't fuck with me," he said as he took the wheel. "The assholes in that Escalade, Russians, thugs, trust me, you don't want to know them. And you better let me drive until we lose them." After a moment, the cabbie asked, "Who the hell are you anyway?" "You don't want to know that either. Just call me Rick." "Oh, Jesus Christ," Chuck muttered as he squirmed out of the driver's seat. "What is it with me? I pick up a gang of kids that pukes in my car? And when it's not a gang of kids, it's an actual gang—" "Look, Chuck," the other man cut in. "I think this might go a little better if you answer the questions rather than ask them. You gonna at least let me radio my family to let them know I ain't gonna be home in the morning?" Chuck reached his hand towards the dash. They gained a bit on the Russians, but the Escalade's bright headlights still illuminated the interior of the cab. With his mind momentarily distracted by Chuck's request, the man called Rick did not see the red light as he roared into the intersection. The nose of the Jeep Wrangler caught the back end of the cab just as it exited, and whirled it around 180 degrees. Rick quickly regained control of the vehicle, now headed in the opposite direction. He took advantage of the mishap and stepped on the gas, zipping past the Escalade in the oncoming lane. He slowed slightly, made a swift left turn, then a right, another left, and another right. He drove a short distance and turned left again. 3 streets away, he resumed normal driving speed. Who is this maniac? Chuck wondered as he sat tight-lipped and white-knuckled in the passenger seat. With a flash of lightning, the rain intensified. Now that the man was in the front seat, Chuck could see him in the wave of streetlights that briefly lit up the grubby interior. The man named Rick was wearing a long trench coat over a cheap suit. He looked like one of those detectives on that late-night TV show Chuck frequently fell asleep to. On the sleeve of his right hand, Chuck noticed blood. Hey, Rick, I think you're bleeding, buddy. The man glanced down at his sleeve and quickly shifted his attention back to the road. It's not my blood, Chuck, he replied, still staring straight ahead. What do you mean it's not? The man cut him off in mid-sentence. You trust me, Chuck? Quite frankly, Rick, Chuck spit. No, I don't. I knew something was wrong with you the minute you got in this car, and now you're driving my car. My car! And it's probably fucking totaled now. Won't even let me call my family. Chuck glanced at Rick and reached for the dash again. I need a tissue, he whined. Will you at least let me get a fucking tissue? As his fingers closed on the handle of the glove compartment, he felt the pressure of cool metal against his temple. Chuck froze. You keep a gun in this car, Chuck? The cabbie clenched his jaw. Just sit back, relax, and for God's sake, Chuck, buckle your seatbelt. Rick put his own firearm in his lap and leaned across Chuck, snapping open the glove compartment and retrieving the gun he knew was inside. The man who called himself Rick looked at his passenger meaningfully. No more of that, huh? Chuck buckled his seatbelt, rested his head on the side window, and stared out at the lights that gleamed through the curtain of water. The wipers clicking away like a metronome in a symphony of raindrops. Rick, with the pistol still in his lap, made a sharp right-hand turn, gently came to a stop, and jammed the car into park. We're here, Chuck,